that was a big, I think, realization for me to realize I'm building, a kitchen products brand. It's called Willow in Everett. And it was a great little brand and I actually loved it. I was a passionate tea and coffee user. But when I launched Pet Honesty, I knew it had kind of checked these boxes of us just frankly being a superior business model. Everything has trade-offs, of course. So oftentimes these superior business model companies are going to have a lot more competition. But what's interesting is Pet Honesty was literally 100 times more valuable than the kitchen products brand. My exit between the two was a 2-year difference. Sold the kitchen products brand in 2019, Pet Honesty in 2021. I wasn't a 100x better entrepreneur, right? I didn't have 100x better strategy. It was literally the opportunity itself. So that was an important lesson for me is as I'm building these other brands, it was hard to initially leave them to go to Pet Honesty, but it's one of these, I think, almost like cognitive biases that we have is we don't fully understand opportunity cost. And I could have worked my ass off and been the best in the world at building a kitchen products brand. Even at the best in the world, it maybe would have been 10x bigger. So I think that's like an interesting lesson for me is the opportunity itself can oftentimes be the most important thing.
Welcome to the Econ Breakthrough Shortcuts. In these 5-minute episodes, we cut straight to the real stories, real numbers, and the real lessons learned from brand builders and entrepreneurs just like yourself. No fluff, just high impact takeaways that you can apply into your business today.
Yeah. So one of the things I'll share, this is another principle I have, is if there's something I want to do in life, I find someone who's done that and I learn from them. And when I started Pet Honesty, I did have this sense that this was different, that this was going to be a significant brand. Kind of had this intuition, like this is $1 billion brand. And with that, but what led to that, even finding the opportunity in Pet is I was hungry for creating a bigger business. And when I looked at people who had successfully done that, who had quote unquote done what I wanted to do and had what's called like 9-figure exits, because I thought that'd be a really fun goal to shoot for, I realized there were certain characteristics of those businesses. So they typically had really great gross margins. They typically had really good lifetime value in the form of oftentimes a consumable repeat purchase product. And there's like a high emotional appeal to the products they were selling. So instead of selling like a spatula, I had a kitchen products brand. Selling something that helps your dog's health, there's like this high, motivation for the buyer to want that. And I started noticing that pattern in a lot of the brands that were fetching the biggest valuations. So that was a big, I think, realization for me to realize I'm building, a kitchen products brand. It's called Willow in Everett. And it was a great little brand and I actually loved it. I was a passionate tea and coffee user. But when I launched Pet Honesty, I knew it had kind of checked these boxes of us just frankly being a superior business model. Everything has trade-offs, of course. So oftentimes these superior business model companies are going to have a lot more competition. But what's interesting is Pet Honesty was literally 100 times more valuable than the kitchen products brand. My exit between the two was a 2-year difference. Sold the kitchen products brand in 2019, Pet Honesty in 2021. I wasn't a 100x better entrepreneur, right? I didn't have 100x better strategy. It was literally the opportunity itself. So that was an important lesson for me is as I'm building these other brands, it was hard to initially leave them to go to Pet Honesty, but it's one of these, I think, almost like cognitive biases that we have is we don't fully understand opportunity cost. And I could have worked my ass off and been the best in the world at building a kitchen products brand. Even at the best in the world, it maybe would have been 10x bigger. So I think that's like an interesting lesson for me is the opportunity itself can oftentimes be the most important thing.
I love that. I think that resonates a lot. And I think that, it's like, what vehicle are you taking, right? Because certain vehicles can only go so far. And so are you truly on a rocket ship or are you, on your bicycle, right? And hoping that you can get to that 100 to the moon in a bicycle. Don't think that's necessarily going to be able to happen. And so I think that vehicle does make a big difference. As you mentioned, like you weren't 100x better, but we're able to have 100x better valuation. So what is your advice and recommendations then for somebody that's hearing you speak right now and they're like, crap, I don't know if I'm in the right vehicle, or like, what do I do with my existing brand? Because that's who's listening to this, are existing brand owners. So what's your recommendation to them? And also, like, if they do want a 9-figure $1 billion valuation type brand, Like, what do they do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first question I would ask is, what do they actually want? I kind of realized there's this kind of huge irony of life. We spend our entire lives living and no time thinking about how we want our life to look. Like we spend more time on the car we drive or the house we live in than actually thinking about how to design our lives. So I think what was helpful for me and what I maybe tell listeners is just get really clear on what you want. Like, what do you want for your life? And this is a whole separate conversation. I think there's ways to do that come from maybe connecting to what like you truly intrinsically want versus what maybe the ego wants, from a place of limitation. And I'll share for myself, like for me looking back, going for a big exit, I'm so glad I did it, but bigger doesn't always mean better. It doesn't always mean happier or whatever. So I would just ask people first and foremost, like, what do you actually want? And let's say, okay, they want to have something that can, have a larger financial impact on them. Then I think it'd be getting really honest about where they're at right now in the business they're in. And do they think their current business has the potential to get to the valuation they want to hit? And the best way to do that is to look at markers of what have other businesses in their industry sold for and what are the characteristics of that. And if they find that, like, whatever they're doing doesn't have a high potential, then I think it's time to possibly consider starting something else with what they've done. So a principle I love is it's from the book Essentialism. He talks about having a season of exploration and then exploitation. So while, yes, my life was chaotic in 2017 with 5 different businesses, it actually brought a level of healthy exploration. And then when I found the one that I knew was better, I could fully exploit it. So for some listeners here, if they're in an inferior business model that they think has a low probability of getting to the financial place they want, what would it look like to explore with another business or two, start it again, and they could, sell the current one, they could automate it, whatever. So that's one. I think if they feel like their current business and industry has the potential, and again, they're looking at other examples of this, then, I've said this, but I'm a huge believer of when there's something I want to do, find someone who's done it and learn from them. And that typically can come from a book or a course. I find that when building a business, the best information is in the minds of those who are actively doing it, like the operators. And there's ways that I found effective to create an advisory board. That's something I did at Pet Honesty that was massively helpful. I created advisors who had done what I wanted to do, and they helped me think through the right strategy and have a blueprint to basically build the business that I wanted.